My wife and I, well, we've been running the rat race for years. With a family, a house in the city, 2 dogs, a cat, the stereotypical American dream. But the city took its toll. The neighborhood got worse, the crime rose, and we found ourselves looking for a way out. Our opportunity came when I was offered a job out of state. It was a great career move, but we didn't want to move to a new city just to have the same problems again. So we started looking around and found a great mountain community about an hour and a half from the job. It was a really big ranch-style house with sort of like a big back porch, windows everywhere, and a ton of property. The backyard was a big grassy area, and the creek that cuts the property in half kind of separated us from the acres of woods beyond. It was huge. The house is more than about twice the size of our house in the city. It's all updated, has no neighbors within a mile. It's a radical change from the lives that we lived in the city, but best of all, it was less than half of what we were paying for our old house. So you see, the house was in foreclosure, and when we asked the listing agent about it, she simply said that the old family had abandoned the property, and then we really didn't think anything of it. The first 3 months were essentially uneventful. With us setting into our new life, the kids getting used to their new school and their new friends, and most of all, us getting used to this big house and this giant property. But then the weather turned cold, and things started to get a little weird on this property. It started with noises coming from the forest. Things we chalked up to just being near the woods. Then the motion lights around the house started going off randomly. Once again, we just chalked it up to, maybe it was just a deer walking by or possibly even some bears. But then last night, it all changed. Last night was the most terrifying night of my life. One of the dogs was at the back door whining and scratching. I assumed he needed to go out to the bathroom, so I grabbed my flashlight and walked out to the back door. Instantly, something felt off. The dog bolted from the back of the property, growling and snarling. It was a cold night, about 30 degrees, but the dog plunged straight into the creek and out on the other side. Running off into the woods, he disappeared through the forest moments later. Flashlight bouncing, I ran after him, calling his name. I got in the creek, made my way across the makeshift bridge, trying desperately to follow him. I could hear the dog still growling and barking from somewhere up ahead. And I began to notice, as I was chasing the dog, I was pushed further away from the safety of the house and deeper into the forest. And when I heard it, a shriek like I've never heard before in my life, it was a mix of like a moaning wail and metal on metal. It echoed through the trees and froze me in my tracks. My dog bounded its way back to me and cowered down behind me. I turned around and I could just make out the warm glow of the house behind me, and the dark cold ahead of me. I swung my flashlight around wildly looking for the source of the noise, and that's when I heard an even more terrifying noise. Out of the cold silence, my wife's voice floated all around me. "Babe," the voice called out. I whipped around and I could just barely make out the image of my wife, safely inside our house. And then the voice called out again. "Babe, I'm right here," came the voice from deeper within the woods. Then another voice, just as clear as the other. It was my dad's voice. "Come out here," it called. I swung my flashlight around again, and this time I caught the briefest glint of light bouncing off the eyes. The creature was in a beam of light for barely a second, but it was tall, maybe 6 or 7 feet, and ashen white. It had long, spindly fingers that grasped around the trunk of a pine tree. And then, as quickly as I saw it, it was gone. I turned back and ran towards the house. I ran headlong into the icy creek and stumbled. My dog ran past me, making it to the backyard and up to the porch. I dug my hands into the freezing, muddy bank and pulled myself out, not stopping to look back. When I reached the porch, I scrambled inside. My wife ran over to me, asking what had happened. I just shook my head. I'm not certain myself what happened. I had a growing sense of dread tonight as the sun began to fall. We kept the dogs inside, and I haven't dared look out the back. But as I sit here typing, one by one, my motion lights in the backyard keep going on.